Hey everybody, welcome back to our mini-series all about the future of HR. It's me, Rodney, and Sam. What's up, Sam?
Hello, Rodney. How are you today? That is not my check-in question. Sorry, that's just pleasantry. General human pleasantry.
We don't do that usually. No. Filler, just
all killer.
All killer. I love that this says today's the day you've all been waiting for. I feel like today is the day that 3 of you have been waiting for. It is our Ask Us Anything episode. You all asked us things, and we're going to try to answer them. We have been taking questions from LinkedIn, from our email inbox, and we're going to roll through them, and we'll see how many answers we get to, but we're going to try to do a lot of them. Sam has decided we should talk less and answer more, and that's what we're going to do. But first, we're going to check in. Am I right?
You are right. And Rodney, I don't know if you knew this, but it is officially spooky season.
Hey,
we're in it. So I'm going to ask an appropriate check-in question, which is, what is a favorite costume of yours from the past, a Halloween costume?
Okay, full disclosure, Sam. I really love going to Halloween parties, but I'm really bad at planning ahead for costumes.
Sure.
I often just pull something together the day of, and I'm always mad at myself. And every year on like November 1st, I'm like, I'm going to start right now. This is the year. And every year on October 30th, I'm like, man, where did the year go? You know? But my friend Bridget is very into Halloween and actually can plan things. And one year she and I went and won the Halloween costume as the 2 main characters from the miniseries Glow.
Okay.
And it was great. I was the Liberty Bell character. She was the other one who wore like the fuzzy Russian hat. I can't remember her name. This was several years ago. Anyway, it was a hit. The photos taken of us, we were pretend wrestling, and we actually both kind of look like those people. And so it all worked out great. Yeah. What about you?
2 come to mind for me. 1, grad school, my first Halloween in grad school, really trying to make a splash, really get my name out there. I went as Never Nude Tobias Funke from Arrested Development, which means I wore some very small cutoff shorts, and that is it. I also shaved my head into male pattern baldness and grew a mustache. And I was Tobias Funke, the Never Nude. I think that's actually right around the time that I met my wife, so it worked.
Did you meet her at that party when you were wearing that
we
outfit?
were basically acquaintances leading up to that party. And, now we're married 11 years later. So playing the long game. And then another one is Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec, because many people have said that I sometimes have the personality of Ron Swanson.
I was just going to say, is there a costume required, or like, do you just show up places?
I tucked in a polo shirt. And I think I maybe darkened up my mustache a bit, and that was about it.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. We are checked in with our Halloween cheer. I'm going to ask you a question, and we're going to do these. We're going to give some smart answers, and we're going to help some people today.
Wow. It's a tall order. Sam's like writing checks with his mouth over there that I have to cash with my brain.
That's right. Rodney, I would love to hear your reflections on HR's collaboration with finance and strategy teams, as it is my experience that some of the real org design decisions are often taken in those 2 functions. How does HR Level 4 approach that?
Starting out with a real doozy.
A real banger.
Look, here's what I'll say. These 3 things, HR, people ops, finance, and strategy, should be organized around the work to be done. The idea that you could actually bifurcate the work to be done strategically, where we're headed, the bet we're making, the choice we're steering toward, how we're paying for it in our time and money and energy, and the way of working and organizing to get there. The idea that those things can actually tidily be split apart is ludicrous. But it almost never works the way that it should. But like for the same reason that siloing always doesn't work the way that it should, because you have people who believe that they have mutually exclusive remits who are steering toward their own agenda and essentially not collaborating as one organization to make the strategy happen. So in my mind, the strategy should always be the tip of the spear. Like, the idea should always be, what as an enterprise have we prioritized, or what list of things have we prioritized around our core business, around our adjacent business, around our innovative businesses, whatever. What are the things that we have prioritized as a business? And then from a resourcing perspective and a talent perspective and a culture perspective and a ways of working perspective, what's it going to take to get us there? It's just that usually it looks more like strategy getting created and thrown over the fence to people who are theoretically going to execute it, HR wanting to make a bunch of moves and having no budget to pay for it, and finance feeling on the hook for keeping the boat afloat in terms of the P&L, which is like, it's backwards. So my reflections are, it's backwards and it should be forwards. How's that for smarts?
I mean, I don't think there's anything I can say to make that any clearer or better. I mean, I think everything you said there is totally right. And we're going to have some later questions about leadership teams that don't seem to understand that they have shared work. And this is kind of a shared work question. So I think I'm going to hold off on my answer until we get to some of those questions down below.
The only other thing I want to say, because I've been in a lot of conversations lately with HR leaders who are like, I want to do real transformation and I want it to be like going from level 1 or 2 to level 3 or 4, but like we don't have budget, or we need budget, or I need to sell it to my finance people, is like, I would really love for the conversation to turn to the idea that if you think about the cost of talent in organizations, getting it, keeping it, performing, etc., HR really does hold the vast, vast majority of the purse in its domain. If you think about them being responsible for the garden in which all of those humans grow. And I would love to see finance not just willing, but leading the conversation about investing in HR so that the culture, the ways of working, the operating system gets all functions what they want strategically.
Love it.
Yeah. All right. Okay, Sam,
Yes.
Here's a question.
Okay.
How have you seen HR departments do annual planning when they have both platform teams and mission-based teams? How does HR engage with more mature future of HR levels without creating the perception that makes platform teams feel, quote unquote, less than mission-based teams?
So I think I'm going to take this question in reverse order of the two questions that were asked here. So starting with the question about how do you do future of HR without creating those perceptions that make platform teams feel less than? I mean, I think that's a challenging question, but completely worth asking, because I've gotten some of that in the talks that we've given and people we've talked to about this. Platform teams that function and do really great work are not a nice to have. They allow everything else to happen. So you can't have a cool structure of MBTs doing gnarly stuff if you don't have a strong foundation of platform teams that are really capable of doing their work. And I have a lot of respect for disciplines and functions where the excellence and the innovation is not necessarily obvious, where you like kind of need to be a member of the guild to really understand that, like, oh, this is being done at a really, really high level. So first, I would hope that any HR leadership can bring that appreciation to their platform teams and give them the accolades and the resources to continue to iterate even on really mature platforms, because I think even really well done platform teams that are doing their work really well, there is that room for continued innovation. It's just that's like small I innovation, where they are continually looking for more efficiency or better ways of doing this thing that they've really dialed in, which frees up money and time and attention to go pursue other stuff. So that's the first thing that I think about, is like bringing that kind of honor to those platform teams, even if they're doing the kind of less sexy work.
Let me just add one more thing, because I'm going to fully let you tackle the resourcing bit.
And I was going to kind of just ignore that, I think.
Oh, cool. Great. If you're doing mission-based teaming well, people are going to come out of the platform team at least for 50% capacity to be part of some of those missions, some or all of those missions. So getting into like the Jets and the Sharks mindset of I'm always a dynamic resource that's floating about and making things happen at the edge versus I am this more centralized, persistent function always is a false binary. And if you think about the example I keep using, hopefully you're all sick of hearing about it. But if you think about the example of a particular business leader wanting to reimagine hiring for a role that they have had trouble getting traction with, you would expect that there are one or more members of the talent acquisition team holding a role in that mission-based team with, half or 100% of their time until they get past it. So I don't want it to seem like it's only one way or the other. Now, there are roles like an HR business coach is probably never going to be in the platform team. So like there's a one way there, but folks from the platform team presumably are going to be pulled into mission-based teams to contribute expertise, work, authority, etc., in an ongoing way.
I mean, in a perfect world, I think I would even just disagree with you a little bit and say an HRBC would spend a little bit of time on a platform team to like really understand in their bones, like how this work is getting done and what's going on there. But that is a perfect world sort of situation where you've got all this kind of extra availability floating around that never actually happens.
Oh, I mean, I love the idea of that happening rotationally. My only point was like, there's not probably going to be a platform team of HR business coaches that would be a home for them. But I totally agree with you. I feel like having been an HR business partner, I absolutely should have had to do a tour of duty, like in comp and in employee relations and in these other spaces, because I thought that I knew way more than I did about those things. And it would have been humbling and educational to actually do that job.
So the annual planning part of this question, how have you seen HR departments do annual planning when they have both platform teams and mission-based teams? I don't have a specific example in mind, and my instinct is to reject the premise of annual planning because we have challenges with it. However, I will not do that, and I'll just offer a couple of quick thoughts. One is that if your annual planning process requires that you know every mission you're going to do in the year, that is a problem. And to the extent that your annual planning process can set aside a bucket of funds for missions to be spun up out of, that's the ideal here. So we retain optionality around what we actually go pursue. And maybe you got to put the first couple of the year in the actual planning process to get that approval or whatever. Sure. But try to have kind of that slush fund that we can use later on. And then the nature of a platform team should make it much more predictable in terms of resourcing. Like what we need for our platform teams to actually perform should be a bit more of a math problem than other stuff. That's kind of the point of having a platform team that is relatively predictable and hopefully over time is just getting more efficient and more effective. So there might be something interesting around holding your platform teams to a reasonable expectation of increasing efficiency over time, and then either reinvesting those funds into continually making that platform team better or swooping it into the MBT fund for MBTs that get spun up, including MBTs that are potentially focused on making platform teams more capable. Like that's always an option as well.
Yeah. +1. If you're working in a traditional organization with fairly traditional planning purposes, I would just think about this the way that you think of any transformation and just be like, there is funding and headcount allocated to make the changes that we want to make. And MBTs are the vehicle through which we're going to make them.
Nice.
Sweet.
Okay, Rodney, here comes another one. How can we change the current perception of HR within the organization? Just in case anybody is not catching the subtext here, i.e. not that popular.
It's so funny because I feel like HR writ large is not popular and then everyone loves their individual HR person. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I see that a lot. It's like, well, they suck, but not you. I love you. And it's like, well, okay. But the reason I wanted to answer this question is because I don't know if I've gotten to say this on this podcast, but to me, the most important thing that undergirds every single thing that we're talking about, and the whole reason that we made an approach to HR as an organization is that for HR to be popular, to be strategic, to be seen as super critical and value add, it has to shift from triaging the people to building the organization. The triaging of the humans and the emotions and the interpersonal and the management issues, that is an infinite well. And the more of it you do, the more of it there will be. It has no bottom. The only way to get out of that and to get into a reputational place of being the most important function in the company, which I believe you are, is to get into the job of organizational design, of creating the operating system in the company where the membership, the compensation, the ways of working, the structure support and progress the strategy. If you stay in the business of effectively being the most compassionate, the most caring, the most wonderful organizational therapists, you will never be in the business of organizational effectiveness. And I know that that's like a hard thing to say, but it's something that I've struggled with. I've struggled with it at the ready. I've struggled with it in other jobs. It's so easy to fall into the pattern of listening to and dealing with and trying to support and help every single individual. And the only way out of it is to stop doing most of that and build something that serves everyone.
Boom. I got nothing to add to that.
Was that
That's
it?
good. That was real good.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, your turn. How can I sell the value of creating more transparency and inviting more non-management team members to participate in things to my leadership team? This asker is talking about things like strategy setting, where traditionally the leadership team would do it themselves and then roll it out to the organization, and they're wanting to sell this shift.
Well, one of the things that I have to say, and I don't know how comfortable you will be saying this to your leadership team, you could probably find an eloquent, careful way to say it, is I wonder how good is the process right now? How happy is everyone with the current strategy or whatever process you're talking about here that is traditionally done in a closed room at the top of the organization and then rolled out to the rest of the org? The fact that you are asking this question makes me think that it's not amazing and that it could actually be better. So anytime I'm trying to convince anyone to do something, I'm coming at it from their point of view and what they actually care about. So what is the leadership team not currently getting from their current process of setting strategy? I imagine it's a bunch of things that wouldn't be too hard to answer or to say, hey, if we did this in a more collaborative bottom-up way, not exclusively, perhaps as part of the existing top-down, you might be able to get some of those needs met. So that's the first place my brain goes. And the second one is actually kind of boring, which is a lot of times bottom-up processes, they're kind of a shit show logistically. Like, how do you give your feedback on something? Who's collecting it? How is it communicated up? Because we're dealing with sometimes such a huge scale of information. It's just a mess. And I think the best bottom-up processes I've ever seen done are when there's actually a really well thought through, boring logistics sort of approach to how we're going to do this so that it doesn't fall on anybody on the leadership team's shoulders to like figure out the logistics of how to gather bottom up data and then make sense of it. There are folks maybe in HR who are helping kind of steward that process and make sense of the information. So it's not just a raw data dump onto leadership and like, here's your bottom up process of what everybody else thinks we should do. Like, be smart with this.
Here's two things I would add. One is, this is a little order of operations-y, but if you're doing it the traditional way, I know you're talking about more than just strategy, but we'll use strategy as the example, where it's being created in a closed room with a small group of people and then quote unquote rolled out. I guarantee that it feels to the people who made that strategy like the rollout is not going well. They'll just be like, how do these people not know what our fucking strategy is? All I do is talk about the strategy. But it doesn't matter, because if they weren't included in any way in the sausage making, it is like not in their bones. So at a minimum, in terms of making this sale to leadership, it should solve a problem that they have, which is that they feel like their beautifully considered and packaged and rolled out strategy is in some ways not being heard and understood by the masses. So
Or
like
being
go solve that
tarnished by
problem.
the masses.
Or being tarnished. Yeah. I mean, the number of CEOs that I've talked to who are like, when people tell me they don't know what the strategy is here, it makes me like lose my mind because I feel like all I do is explain what the strategy is and they still
And
don't
it's
know.
Probably true, but then think about where did they hear about the strategy? Oh, one time in an all hands a month and a half ago? Great. I'm sorry, your 30-second slide didn't imprint itself into my memory for all eternity.
Sam Spurlin, voice of the proletariat. Anyway, so that's like table stakesy buy-in. The slightly more elevated sale to me is if you can paint a picture of two leaders that those sitting in different roles who are not managers are going to have different perspective that is valuable for real, because there is a big difference between being an executive and seeing the roll up of the app score review and being a customer service person in a call center and getting screamed at every day. Like the level of texture around that issue is just very different. And so I think that it can be a little bit hard for leaders to invite that kind of commentary and nuance into the room, but I think it's really wise. And honestly, like to me, it's just not negotiable. If you are a CEO that is running a restaurant company and you don't have a server included in the strategy making, you are fucking up. If you are the CEO of a retail company and you don't have someone who works on the floor of the store at some point in the creation of your annual planning, you are off. That is not it. Like you have got to have the baggage handler in the mix telling you about how the airline is actually working.
The last answer to this question, to how you sell the value of this, is you snip out Rodney talking right there and you send the audio file to the leaders of your organization. You say, here you go.
Maybe bleep the F-bomb. I don't know. It depends on your leader and if they like that sort of thing.
Nice.
All right.
Another question?
Yeah. I want to ask you again because I said a lot of words. How do you get, I love this question. How do you get a leadership team to truly work together if their remits are very different? Are we just forcing collaboration for collaboration's sake, or is there a power in tapping into the collective?
The second part of that, there is power in tapping into the collective. And
door number two.
I mean, it's possible you're forcing collaboration for collaboration's sake. I mean, not every group of leaders who come together and have a weekly meeting are a team, or every group of people who come together and have a meeting are not necessarily a team. Chances are, if we are dealing with a leadership team who are struggling to find shared work, it's because they have not really opened their eyes yet to the fact that they are stewarding an operating system.
Yeah.
There is a whole world, a whole universe of work that we would call the organizational operating system that they are uniquely situated to really influence in a fundamental way. And no other group within an organization, if we're talking about the most senior leadership team, has that same level of influence for a lot of the things that are floating around in an organizational operating system. So usually when I'm working with a leadership team who is trying to truly become a team, that is the first move, is trying to help them see all the stuff that they could be doing to improve basically everything in an organization. You know, how are we thinking about the way our purpose shows up across the organization? Are we talking about it regularly? Oh, our purpose doesn't actually mean anything. Maybe we should do some work around really articulating that. How are we meeting in this organization? Oh, our senior leadership team meetings are horrible and we dread them every week. I wonder why is that? And is it possible that the patterns that we are experiencing as a senior leadership team are radiating out from us and into the organization in ways that are just incredible in terms of the number of people that are being affected? So that's where my brain goes first. What about you?
Yeah, hard plus one. And I think in work that I've done sometimes with leadership teams that are cross-functional particularly, you do have to force the collaboration for them to recognize what their shared work actually should be. So sometimes it takes the pain of seeing that each of us is coming together to effectively report out from our silo in order for the shared work to emerge and for it to tip at some point. But if you don't even force the collaboration, you never even get to the point where you're like, why is the finance person just coming and telling us about the budget? Why is the salesperson just coming and telling us about the revenue? Why are we not having, I've had this experience multiple times of at some point, some leader, often not the CEO, saying like, why are we not having conversations about the next phase of this organization? Or we're all complaining about culture. Why are we not having a conversation about what is going on here that people are leaving in droves? Or sometimes it takes enough just like being locked in a room together to go like, we are talking about dumb stuff that each other don't care about, but I bet there is something that we should and would all care about, which is the collective stewarding of this organization as representatives of our functions.
Yeah, I think it's often a mechanism of avoiding the actual difficult conversations. By staying in our silos, talking about the things that we're doing and what we're working on, we don't have to pop up a level higher, which almost every leadership team I've ever worked with up and down an organization is operating like a level too low. Like they're too in the weeds, a layer down, and they need to pop a level up. I mean, a very practical thing that I have seen work with some leadership teams that we've worked with is I've started asking them in their, whatever their kind of typical weekly meeting is try to challenge themselves at least once to either explicitly ask for help with something from one of your colleagues or explicitly offer your help to one of your colleagues to start just priming that collaboration pump and thinking about, oh, this thing that Rodney's talking about, she's not going to ask me to help, but I see a way that something that I'm doing could actually help her. I'm going to just offer that or vice versa to start to get that going a little bit more.
I love it.
All right. A bit of a follow-up from the last question. So we're having trouble identifying our shared work. We're stuck in the pattern of report out, taking group questions, and then action items taken back to individual silos over and over again. Can you help us get unstuck?
3 things. One is the person who wrote this said something about having like roughly a mission that encourages them to work differently. And the mission can't be to work differently. The mission has to be something that you're doing that you're going to accomplish by working differently. And that's often where these kinds of cross-functional things fail. I think I said this somewhere else, but it bears repeating. Do not have a mission that is around team effectiveness or new ways of working. The mission should be something content driven, like unfucking the supply chain is a dope mission. We will get the ways of working because we will work in new ways to solve that problem and accomplish that mission. Reimagining team level and team incentives is a mission. It's not like don't do ways of working for ways of working sake because it will be very hard to identify the shared work in that. So that's number 1. Get super clear on the mission and make it a content-y thing. Ways of working are a context-y thing that you will bring in, pill in the hot dog style. 2, have a real charter. So use a mission charter. We have some of them kicking around to identify what it is you're going after and then what the roles are that are required, because that will help you to see what the shared work is. And, you know, in mission-based teams, there's always going to be some people who are really carrying water and some people who are more like giving advice or giving money or giving authority or whatever. It's not going to be equally divided. That's not what dynamic teaming looks like. But if you have a really tight charter of the mission and the team level accountabilities, and then you get into roles, you should get out of this like reporting to each other thing. And the last thing is, I do think that using different meeting structures can really help with this. So the kinds of meeting structures that we use, see also Sam's first appearance on this podcast when he came to talk about an action meeting. Hey, one of my favorite episodes of all time. Like if you're using an action meeting structure with a cross-functional group, first of all, it will feel wildly uncomfortable because there's not really room for like long presentations. And second of all, you'll notice real quick if there's not really shared work between you. And then know that like maybe you're not a team or maybe you're not the right team or maybe it's not a mission, or maybe it's not the right mission. Be willing from there to like pull whatever lever you need to pull to recast it, because, and then I promise I'm going to shut up. I just have so much to say about this. If you create a mission-based team as a container to be filled with something, you're just recreating the org chart. You're doing the same thing the org chart does, which is structure first, work second. And we are trying to upend that and say, identify the work first and then create the structure around it. MBTs can go the same way as a sticks and bricks chart if you make them. So just be really tuned into the fact that like any of the levers are pullable. The roles, the missions, the meetings, the charter, the whatever. We don't hold any of those things as sacred and non-negotiable, but we start with the job to be done.
The only thing I was going to add to that in a very, I don't know, I seem to be like bringing the very like simple answers to some of these, which is in that meeting structure conversation or topic that you just brought up. One of the meeting structures, quote unquote, that you can use is the working session, which is you bring a piece of work that we are going to spend time working on together. So for the next 45 minutes, we do have shared work. It's jamming on whatever this thing is right now. And that may tell us something about other shared work that we should have as well.
I was going to say that and I forgot. I'm so glad you said it.
This is why we're a good team.
I know. We are a good team.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, Rodney, I have a question for you. How do you enable collaboration and drive accountability in fast-paced matrix companies? Think like tech company.
I mean, I feel like the answer is in the question, which is you don't, because a fast-paced matrix is like a centaur. It doesn't really exist. By design, a matrix slows you down. That's the whole point of it. It slows you down, it disables collaboration, and it obfuscates accountability. Like that's what a matrix does. It creates extra lines that people can hide inside of. So, I mean, start with maybe not doing that. Like start with not having, look, matrices to me are always a compromise where it's like, we didn't want to decide what the priority was. So we said it was two equally important things, which means neither, which means sludge.
Right.
I just think that it's very, very, unless you have two leaders who are just like the Venn diagram is a circle and there's just no daylight between them. If there are matrix reporting lines, you are necessarily going to have blinks in collaboration, accountability to whom is always going to be in competition, and slowness in navigating those reporting lines. It's just like, it's a hot take, but I've never seen it another way.
Yeah. The additional context on this question was, it says, I'm thinking about my org where teams have different goals that are constantly changing and so hard to align on those. Plus new roles are coming up and it's not always clear who owns the stuff. And what's coming to mind for me is like the difference between continuous steering, which is a thing that we like, and just kind of chaotic mayhem, which is not what we want in an organization. So if goals are constantly changing, that doesn't sound like continuous steering to me. That sounds like we're playing kindergarten soccer, essentially. So this might be one of those situations where I would actually be looking for coaching opportunities to slow us down and make us more deliberate and make us run with goals for a little bit longer, as opposed to immediately changing them and having to spend all of that cognitive and organizational overhead to realign on all of our new goals, when really we could just maybe continue on with our goals for a little bit longer. And sure, maybe it's somewhat suboptimal, but you're making up the effectiveness and the efficiency by not having to do all of the recalibration and redesigning the collaboration for the new goals. So there might be something there about, can you be a voice of like, hey, let's calm down for a second. Let's not change all of our goals and let's just carry on and do it at a little bit less frequent cadence.
Love it. All right. Ready? If we have a traditional HR team with defensive processes, first of all, I love that you, whoever you are, called it defensive processes because so accurate. Parentheses, what not to do, risk management, everything is aligned manager's responsibilities, unparentheses. How can we start to shift that into a service mindset? Like, will Agile HR ever really be a thing? Or is it just a catchphrase for conferences and LinkedIn profiles? I love this
Boom.
person.
I
What do you
mean,
think, Sam?
once we have a bunch of certifications around Agile HR, we'll know we've
Then,
really made it. I mean,
laid it
I
up.
think we've joked about, having some sort of badge or something for the future
Yeah.
of HR stuff that we're
Gotta have a
doing. That's not a
badge.
joke. We need it for real.
For real.
I mean, this is a great question, and I appreciate the hints of cynicism that are poking out of the edges of it. Because, I mean, I think that's obviously a risk of this. It's fun to talk about things being agile, whatever. I mean, when I think about shifting into a service mindset, I immediately think in service to whom? So I think the start of any sort of shift to service is getting closer to those who are being served in the organization and understanding on a really fundamental level, what are those needs that are not yet being met? It sounds like you've got the defensive process needs relatively in hand. And maybe those are the platform teams that you're going to need to have anyway. They're doing important work. Let's be sure to feed it and continue it. But beyond that, is there an understanding within your HR organization about the other stuff that could be done? And I think it's on both sides of it. So within the HR organization, how big are you thinking? How aware are you and your team of what else is out there? What could be done within your remit of HR? And also everybody else in the organization, your functional colleagues, what is their conception of what HR could be doing for them? So there's like this initial sort of like discovery phase or kind of customer insights to be doing, which I think is kind of step zero to any shift toward more of a service mindset.
Yeah. Here's my hot take. I don't want you in a service mindset. I want you in a product mindset.
Yes, that.
Because service mindset will get us into some of that like triaging and care that I talked about before. Yeah. And this is where in our skills episode, we talked about contracting and where I see contracting in some ways working in opposition to client service, because to give excellent client service often means not giving the client what they actually want or ask for, and instead creating something that is needed for the masses. And so, to me, getting out of being traditional and being on D at all time is starting to identify, okay, what are the fires that we're fighting all the time? That's what traditional HR looks like. It is just an operational firefighting reactive machine. So, okay, if we're getting the same kind of complaint 15 times in a month, what is at the root of that we could create something around? Is it a training? Is it a process? Is it a change to compensation? Is it the offboarding of a manager? How do we start to recognize patterns and create product for the whole to get us out of constantly trying to react and protect the business in a head-to-head service-y way?
Yeah, love that. And I think the stuff I said applies as well, as long as you take out service and just put product instead. Because what I was thinking in my head was essentially products serve people. We're creating products. And if we don't understand those people, that's how you end up making a software tool that nobody wants to use, but you think is pretty rad. And that's not what you want to be doing in your HR org.
Totes. Okay, I'm going to ask you this because I don't know the answer. I feel like you are probably the most well-suited person at the ready to answer this question.
Okay.
I have lots of experience in operational leadership and company culture roles, but no formal training. What paths should I follow if I want to make this my career path?
Well, if you want to do exactly what I did, be a teacher for a while, and then decide you don't want to be a teacher, that was a horrible idea. Take out a truly astronomical amount of student loans and go to grad school with a vague plan of what you intend to do.
Dig it.
Realize that organization design is a cool thing and that you want to be doing that, and find an organization that is doing that work and then just do it until you're kind of good at it. Because I also have no formal training in this either. So, I mean, there is an element, of course, there are academic lineages and topics and stuff that you can dig into, organizational behavior, organizational culture studies, organizational theory. There's a bunch of stuff that you can read and learn about there, which will give you a lot of fodder for thinking about and understanding in new ways what you are currently experiencing in your organizations. And then there's the more kind of hands-on sort of stuff, the facilitation training, the coaching training. My version of that was learning how to be a teacher and then being a substitute teacher in high school for a while, which is a pretty good crash course to like being able to like own a room for, a couple of hours. But there's lots of different sorts of facilitation training that you can get there. I don't have strong opinions about what is good or what is bad, as long as you are getting actual reps in front of people and getting feedback along the way about how it's going. Those are the types of things that I think about. I don't generally recommend people go get like a master's degree in anything to do this work. Definitely don't go get a PhD or anything like that. No shade to our colleague Jason, who has earned his PhD and is a very smart fellow.
Good for you, Jason.
But I don't know that's necessarily the fastest or best way to be getting into doing this work. I don't know. What about you? What do you think?
Very few ads. One, can't hurt to take some kind of human-centered design something. Two, can't hurt to take some kind of systems thinking something.
Yeah, complexity theory stuff.
Yeah. Three, it seems like you have, based on the context provided in the email, sort of naturally fallen into this role and are wondering about making it a career path. Sam and I think I can speak for both of us, fundamentally believe that anyone who has a leadership role in a complex organization should know about organizational design. So the answer might not be for you to formally become a people operations person, because to be honest, the best org designers I've encountered in my clients are product people. They are the ones who know the most about the work that we do and do the most of that work in their own organizations. So I'm not trying to wave you off because you sound rad and I would love to encounter you in one of our future of HR clients. But don't think that developing and honing these skills only has to be for the purpose of a formalized people role, because what you are learning right now and what you are pursuing right now is and should be the most valuable skill set on any leadership team in any organization where there are humans working.
Agreed.
Hot.
Rodney, last question.
Hey.
I found myself working in a really toxic work environment with a bad manager, facing a ton of problems. Wait, I submitted this question. Oh, God, never mind.
But who's your manager, Sam, is my question.
That's the real, you're all my man. It's me. I'm the manager in the self-managing organization. Oh, shit.
What are you going to do now, smarty pants?
Yeah. I found myself working in a really toxic work environment with a bad manager, facing a ton of problems I didn't foresee during my interview, even though I asked a bunch of questions. What should I be asking in future interviews to uncover this earlier?
Well, it's tricky. I have two hot takes. The first one is it's really easy in an interview to default to wanting to be liked. I understand that motivation, you're trying to get a job, your literal financial stability is potentially on the line. And usually when those are the surrounding conditions, we find ourselves in the position of contorting our personalities to be accepted by the person who is interviewing us. So first of all, just be aware of that, and that usually when we do that, we are somewhat hypnotized. And what I mean by hypnotized in this case is we stop attending to the experience we're having because we're so focused on the experience the interviewer is having of us. So try, first of all, to pay attention to because I'm willing to bet, even though you asked those questions, there were probably signals and feelings in the room that you were not tuned into because you were I got to get this job. I got to get this money. I got to get this dipshit to like me, So first of all, pay attention to that. Second of all, no matter what questions you ask, first of all, make them real questions. How do decisions get made? What kind of meetings do you have? Yeah. What would you say is the most important quality of someone being successful on your team? I don't know. I'm just making this stuff up because it doesn't really matter what question you ask. Ask a question that is a tiny bit provocative, not challenging, not trying to put someone on the defensive, but just clear and direct, and pay more attention to how they seem about answering the question than even the answer itself. If you get any whiff of you don't deserve to be asking me a question about how decisions are made in my team, that might be an early signal of what's to come. Because someone who is settled in their role and concerned and interested in cultivating the kind of culture that I believe you're looking for is not going to be rankled by having someone ask tough questions. They're going to expect to be asked tough questions because that's what happens when you're a leader. And they are not going to be defensive, pissed, condescending, dismissive. If anything about their answer feels like they're trying to put you in your place, run.
I like that. I don't think I have
What would
anything
you add?
Just that part of what makes toxic people toxic is their ability to hide their toxicity. So it sounds like you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself for having like missed the signals or not realized that this person was this way and therefore you've done something wrong. I mean, I think it's a lot of time it's a numbers game, and sometimes you're just going to get a bad one and there's nothing you could have foreseen, because that's what makes a toxic person toxic. They're unpredictable, they are shifty, and they can change with kind of no real provocation. They're good at hiding it in an interview is all I'm saying. So I don't know. It doesn't really help your situation now, and maybe doesn't really fill you with much optimism for the next interview you have to do. Do the stuff Rodney said. And then also, if you still end up with a toxic manager, don't be too hard on yourself.
Yeah, we've all been there. We've all made those choices multiple times.
Some of us are in it right now.
You with yourself.
You're the manager of this podcast is what I've decided.
Just right now. I just got elected by a committee of one. Fantastic. I think we both know that Jack is the manager of this podcast.
That's 100%. And he is not a toxic manager.
He's not. He's the loveliest manager.
Jack, you absolutely must leave this in. He's going to edit it out. And if I listen to this for real, when it comes out and it's not in here, I'll be upset.
What's going to happen?
Nothing. I got to the part where I was supposed to have a consequence, and I had nothing except my own sadness.
I mean, that's heavy. That's real.
Something.
Jack would want to avoid your sadness.
He would.
That's what makes him a great boss.
A shot. Exactly. Rodney, what should we talk about next week?
You get a break again.
Yes.
You're benched next week again, because it is time for our final special guest of the series. It's a surprise, but I'm very excited for it to drop. So check back next week, see who it is. And in the meantime, please keep sharing these apps with your HR buddies. We have recently heard of 2 or 3 different teams that are listening to these episodes together, which I just want. The idea of all of you in a conference room just like eating donuts and listening to Sam and I cackle, I don't know that there's anything better than that as a visual in my brain.
That's amazing.
So please keep sharing, please keep listening, please keep discussing with your HR buddies, and also hook us up with them because we want to meet them.
That is right. Thanks as always to Taylor Marvin for making us sound awesome. This miniseries is produced by The Ready, where we help organizations around the world change the way they work. You can get in touch with us by emailing FoHR@theready.com. And as for you HR leaders listening right now, let's change ourselves.